Have you ever wondered why a little bit of distance can sometimes, well, create this magnetic pull? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating theory that connects the power plays of a 16th century strategist to the modern science of attraction. So, the whole idea we're digging into today kicks off with this exact question. It pushes this counterintuitive idea that, strategically pulling back your attention can actually make someone more attracted to you. It sounds kind of weird, I know, but the argument isn't about some kind of magic. It's about a really potent mix of brain chemistry and some pretty old school strategy. All right, so let's really get into this central paradox. How on earth can pulling back your attention make someone lean in closer? Well, the material we're looking at suggests the answer isn't in our hearts, but it's actually deep inside the wiring of our brains. And this right here is the key idea. It all comes down to a brain chemical you've probably heard of, dopamine. The argument is that our brains are just fundamentally wired to go after what's uncertain. When the outcome isn't a sure thing, our brain just pumps out more dopamine, creating this cycle of anticipation and, yeah, sometimes even obsession. So what's actually going on inside our heads that causes such a powerful reaction? Well, it's not just one thing. Turns out there are several psychological triggers that all kind of stack up to create this really compelling effect. Let's break them down. First up, we've got this concept called psychological reactance. And think about it like this. When you feel like a freedom is being taken away, in this case, the freedom to get someone's attention, your brain instinctively wants to fight to get it back. So when you pull your energy back, the other person's brain can see it as a loss, triggering this impulse to chase you. And you guessed it, this all circles right back to dopamine. Citing neuroscientists, the source explains that the real chemical thrill isn't in getting the reward. Nope, it's in the anticipation of it. That uncertainty is the fuel that keeps the dopamine loop spinning and keeps our attention totally locked in. And this quote just nails it. Our brains, according to the research cited here, are like problem-solving machines. They absolutely hate open-ended questions in unresolved situations. So when you're unpredictable, you become this puzzle, this mystery that their brain feels compelled to solve, and it ends up fixating on you in the process. This brings us to the last piece of the psychological puzzle, the Zeigarnik effect. You ever notice how a cliffhanger in a TV show just sticks in your mind for days? Well, that's this effect in action. By creating what's called an open loop, an unanswered text, an unpredictable pattern, you become an unfinished task in their mind, and that makes you much, much harder to forget. Okay, so we have all these psychological triggers, but how do they fit into a bigger strategy? This is where things get really interesting. The source introduces its main analogy, the 16th century political strategist Niccolò Machiavelli. Now, he wrote about gaining power over kingdoms, but the argument here is that his principles translate perfectly to the dynamics of desire. The big Machiavellian idea here is all about fundamentally flipping the script on your role in the whole dynamic. As you can see, you can either be the chaser, reactive, always seeking approval, or you can be the prize, leading the interaction, having inherent value. The prize doesn't need anyone else's validation, and that is the source of their power. See, Machiavelli knew that real power isn't about brute force. It's about emotional control. The person who masters their own emotions is the one who controls the whole dynamic. By showing that your time and attention are scarce, that they're valuable, you signal self-respect. And that creates this powerful pull that other people feel an instinct to move toward. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, the source lays out what it calls a secret ritual, a series of steps designed to shift the dynamic by changing where you put your focus and your energy. Now, when you look at these steps, you realize something really important. The emphasis isn't really on ignoring someone in a mean way. It's about pulling your energy away from them and putting it back into yourself. It's about breaking those predictable patterns to create that little spark of uncertainty and rewarding their effort, not just their existence. And that last step is absolutely crucial. This whole thing only works if it's coming from a place of genuine self-worth. But, and this is a big but, whenever you start talking about using these powerful psychological triggers, you absolutely have to talk about the ethics, right? The source material actually tackles this head-on, warning that with this kind of influence comes real responsibility. So here's the bottom line, the thing you absolutely have to remember. There is a razor-thin line between strategic attraction and just plain manipulation. The goal, according to the source, should never be to hurt or confuse someone for your own ego. The real intention should be to build genuine attraction from a foundation of your own self-respect. And you know what? The science totally backs this up. The source points out that while that dopamine chase creates the initial desire, it's a completely different chemical, oxytocin, that builds lasting bonds. It's often called the cuddle hormone, and it isn't triggered by uncertainty or games. It's released through real trust and vulnerability and mutual respect, things that manipulation can never, ever create.
And the source really drives this home with one final, powerful statement. These principles should be used as a mirror for your own self-improvement, to build your confidence, to control your own emotions, not as a weapon to be used against other people.
So that leaves us with this final critical question. We've seen the psychological triggers that can fuel attraction. The real test isn't in knowing how to use them, but in why you're using them. Is the goal to build your own value and create a real connection, or is it just about winning a game? Ultimately, that line between powerful strategy and empty manipulation, well, that's a line drawn by your own intention.